we now have the asset management strategy. Mr. Sharp is going to do a very short introduction to the strategy, and hopefully we can cover that. Right.
Thank you, Chair. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dave Sharp. I'm the Assistant Director responsible for Property Services. Just to provide a bit of context, asset strategies were first introduced in the early 2000s as part of central government policy. These strategies have evolved but should still include necessary information on the Council's estate in terms of building numbers, types, statutory compliance, future maintenance costs, sustainability and governance arrangements. Whilst doing that, this strategy is also driven by how our estate will be utilised to deliver this administration's key ambitious policies relating to a fairer, more compassionate and sustainable borough, whilst ensuring value for money and an estate fit for current and future use. Paragraphs 19 to 25 outline the administration's key policy drivers and link these to a wide range of existing and future service development, including achieving our climate change and net zero targets, family hubs, significant departmental service reviews, better developing relationships with key partners such as the voluntary sector and the NHS, and placing our community at the forefront of our asset planning. The paper sets out the Council's asset management strategy for the next 5 years and provides the overarching framework for managing the Council's property assets. This strategy aims to deliver a fit-for-purpose and sustainable property estate that supports service delivery and is appropriately managed and maintained. The Council has developed this asset management strategy working closely with SIPFA Property, who provide best practice and advice on public sector estate strategies and property management. Whilst this report is not intended to provide the detailed business cases and individual projects in relation to investment, co-location and consolidation of the estate, it sets out the process, framework and overarching strategy and governance to enable this to work to successfully proceed, and is essentially the starting point for this work to progress and will be subject to update and review. The strategy should be viewed in conjunction with the action plan, Appendix A of the report, which sets out the key work streams that are being developed and progressed by services that will feed into asset and place-based planning reviews and service delivery models, leading to a more efficient property estate, exploring opportunities for co-location and consolidation and driving efficiencies and potential savings or additional income streams. The success and pace of the wider asset review will to a larger extent depend on the timely emergence of the service strategies. As individual service strategies around, for example, family hubs or leisure provision are concluded, business cases for investment in and usage of property assets will be agreed with members and fed back through service committees. Progress updates will then feed into the change programme via the assets workstream update reports. Officers are happy to take any questions.
Go. Hold on. Okay. Right, Councillor Graham first, please.
Yes. So, as Mr. Sharp will know, when I read this report, I was slightly confused by the reference to the FIPRA work and asked if there's anything lying behind it. What lies behind this report is a document called Asset Management Strategy 2023 to 2028, which is a 38-page report which goes into far more detail than the paper that we have in front of us. So I just want to be absolutely clear. Could perhaps Mr. Sharp could clarify and confirm that what we have here is a summary, important parts of which are based on that document I've just referred to, and that document has been relied on in producing this report. Is that correct?
We commissioned SIPFA to provide us with support and advice in developing our asset strategy. As I said earlier, they are sort of leaders in best practice as far as public sector asset management is concerned. So they have provided information and supported us in the development of this strategy. Obviously, as with any consultant, information they provide us, will help us inform our decision making and inform our strategy. So, yeah, it has formed the basis of this report. However, it was felt by officers that it was better to summarise the strategy on this basis rather than it disclose that full report.
Okay, but just to be clear, it's not the council has, in terms of officers, already endorsed it by designing it up with a Wandsworth logo on it, not saying it's from CIPRA. That has been produced internally to be the strategy at the point it was at in July. Is that correct?
It's been drafted to support our asset strategy.
Can I ask why it is not listed as a background paper to the report, given that the Local Government Act 1972 says that any report of which important parts are relied on and relied on to a material extent must be listed?
As I said earlier, the report was CIPRA were commissioned to provide support and advice as a consultant in developing our asset strategy. We've taken elements of their report and we've used that to inform this document that we published.
That's not the question I asked, though. What I asked was, given your earlier answer, why it has not been listed as a background paper.
Because officers have taken the view that we didn't need to.
But the question which I asked you at first, which summarised exactly the legal criteria in the 1972 Act, you agreed with me that that was the case. Those are the two criteria for when you legally have to list a background paper.
Sorry.
We can all object to people using documentation not referenced. The officer has made no pretence that it's other than from CIPRA. I think you're pursuing a pedantic point, which is really unnecessary and not very helpful. It's not moving the discussion forward. People have got serious questions to ask about it, not about how much of which chapter comes from a CIPRA report, which you're pointing out to everyone. We're not in some copyright law here.
Councillor Belton, we're talking about compliance with the law, but I will move on because I will pursue this matter elsewhere. However, complying with the law is not a minor point. And members of the committee, I'm sure you weren't aware that this document existed. My point is that you should have been. And it contains a number of very interesting points. So my next question is to the Cabinet member. And can she tell us whether, by voting for this strategy, we are endorsing the points in that report, which is branded up with a Wandsworth logo on it, to sell the Doddington Activity Centre, to sell the Roehampton Youth Club, to sell York Gardens Children's Centre and Adventure Playground, and to sell Bradstow SEN School?
You're voting.
Sorry, I just wondered if actually I think I saw something coming from the officer before you.
I've asked a direct question to the Cabinet member, so I'd be grateful if she could answer it.
Do you want me to? Yeah, as part of the process that CIPRA undertook, they met with services and they had initial discussions around potential properties and assets and RAG rated those buildings. That process was undertaken as you know, as information to inform it. None of those decisions have been taken yet. We have a detailed action plan that's included in this paper. There's work going on around asset reviews that will lead to opportunities. At this stage, we're not making any decisions on the future of those assets.
So I come back to it, a document which is branded as Wandsworth Council's asset management strategy for the years included, has a table in which it says, under the heading Sell, the Doddington Activity Centre, the Roehampton Youth Club, York Gardens Children's Centre and Adventure Playground, and Bradstow SEN School. Is that the position of the Executive?
As far as I'm aware, no.
Have you seen this report?
Yes, I have.
So you were aware that that was the recommendation?
I've seen the report. What you're being asked to take a decision on now is the report in front of you, 23409, and the recommendations, not the other report that you're referring to.
Well, perhaps the Chair could clarify that, because recommendation A says to approve the contents of this report and the asset management strategy. The asset management strategy, as it says on the cover, is the report I've just referred to, which has not been given to the committee.
That isn't the case. The asset management strategy is the report that's been put up here. The report that you're referring to is a work commission through a consultant, and the RAG rating process was included as an example.
So why in that case does it say London Borough of Wandsworth Asset Management Strategy 2023 to 2028 with Wandsworth's logo on it, and it's designed by our own
Councillor
printworks?
Graham, I think, are you trying to imply that we already have made...
to imply that that is the asset management strategy, and that the wording of A suggests that that is what we're adopting. This
I think
report
you've
is
been
not an
told
asset
that
management strategy, but the document we haven't been given is.
Councillor Graham, I think it's explained that what we're going to be doing is voting on this. And I think also the Cabinet member has been pretty clear that decisions about which buildings are going to be sold or not sold or developed or not developed or anything else happening to them have not been made yet.
It was initially described as a summary, wasn't it?
Councillor
This
Graham.
is a summary of what's in that fuller document.
Councillor Graham. Thank you. Right. Councillor Ambash.
As Mr Sharp said, this is the start of a process, and I think it's a good start. As I understand it, the asset management strategy is embodied in the committee report that we've been given, and the appendix is the action plan for the next 3 or 5 years. This is really important work, and it's important that we take this forward across the council and with all the departments of the council. I must say I was hoping for more within the asset management strategy about the quality of the buildings we have and how fit for purpose they are. And I don't really see that. And within the action plan, I was hoping that rather than lots of reviews, we could come to more action. But maybe as this is the first iteration, we will come to that soon. In terms of action in the action plan and clearer timescales. So that I hope we'll agree the recommendations as a start, but could I ask the Chief Executive, would we agree this should come back again to this committee early in the new year with a more worked out strategy and a clearer action plan? Would that be possible?
I think as Mr Sharp explained, it's not the intention to revisit the strategy. The greater detail that you're looking for would come forward in the more service-specific actions and strategies that sit under this. So I'm not aware we've got an intention to revise this strategy. It's meant to be very high level. It's meant to be at the level of principles. It's the work that is taken forward under the umbrella of that that I think will give you the detail that you're looking for. But perhaps Mr Sharp would just like to confirm I've got that right.
Mr. Sharp,
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just on this point, because Councillor Ambash is entirely correct, and the background report does go into great detail about the quality of the buildings, and it does list a series of actions. And then this has been developed, and then it's been summarised away in what's been given to us. So I entirely agree with him that it's inappropriate for this to be put to the committee in this form, and the committee should see the full detail before agreeing with it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Graham. I think the next person I had on my list was Councillor Corner. Again, mindful of the time. Councillor Corner.
Thank you, Chair. And I share the concerns that have been raised about this committee endorsing an asset management strategy without knowing the detail of what might come forward as a result of endorsing that. So, for example, in the document that Councillor Graham has uncovered and explained to the committee today, we have an assessment of the Battersea Library building and how that might be managed going forward, the conclusion of which is that...
Sorry, excuse me, Councillor Corner. I know you've picked this up from your Cabinet lead. However, it's rather difficult for us to be referencing a document that isn't in front of this committee.
That should have been a background report.
That's as maybe. I'm just asking you. So that's the complication. If you're going, you've already heard from the Cabinet member. If it specifically mentions something, we haven't made a decision. So if you could focus your question towards what is in the paper in front of us.
I will make it clear what is being referenced. So Battersea Library, which as councillors will know, is a much-loved community asset. It houses the CAB, which we have been talking about the importance of a lot at this committee. And it is obviously a very key community asset for those of people who living in more deprived communities. The report that was commissioned by SIPFA concludes that although the Battersea Library has civic importance, it's worth careful considerations of alternatives. Does this committee really want to endorse an asset management strategy that appears to be calling the future of Battersea Library into question? And can the Cabinet member please confirm that the administration has zero intention of changing the purpose of that building and the library contained within it.
Right. I think you're just going to say what you said before, that we haven't made any decisions. It's
Precisely. I'll say it again. The paper 23409 is the asset management strategy, and that is what we are discussing, and you're being asked to make a decision about. Any item in the SIPFA report, I'm not aware of any plans to dispose of or do anything else with the Battersea Library. It's not in this report. That's not what you're being asked to make a decision about.
okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Hedges.
Thank you, Chair. I also have a question about the Town Hall scheme master plan that was described in the report that Peter Graham mentioned. The Councillor Graham mentioned. The report states that it's going to be paused. So basically, I wanted to ask the Cabinet member to explain why it's been paused and what the Executive's intentions are. Sorry,
excuse me. It's not the Town Hall master plan. Isn't part of the discussion.
It's an asset. It is a key asset. It is listed in the appendix, but without that information.
Sorry. Mr. Sharp, yeah. You had something to...
Yeah, I do. I think, you know, the report here is clear. The report in front of you in terms of its recommendations in relation to this asset strategy. There is an action plan. Part of that action plan process, and as I said in the introduction to the paper, is that any decisions around the asset strategy and the future of individual assets under the work stream will be subject to business case reviews, which will be discussed with members and go through the service committee process. In relation to the Wandsworth Town Hall project, that currently forms part of the asset strategy under the office accommodation work stream, and those options are still under review.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Belton.
I think the minority party is playing games. You think they're playing games. Let's be precise about this. If we had an asset management strategy that didn't consider all assets and how all the assets of the council were used, then we'd be criticised for not considering the totality of the council's stock and considering whether they're rightfully used. We all know that. That's what an asset management strategy is about. This is a paper about how we go about that. And it will cover every single building in your beloved constituency and my beloved constituency. They'll all be considered to see if they're appropriate and apt for today's use. Now, let's forget your playing around nonsense and actually just take a vote on whether we're accepting the strategy as it stands.
Thank
You
very
regard
much,
the
Councillor
sell-off
Belton.
as children's centres as
I
nonsense.
did not say we're selling it off, and you know perfectly well. I said it was
the
quite
report
right
does.
that
Hello?
the strategy covers every property.
Obviously, last...
Ours to have a big argument now and then, Chair.
As I've said in previous committees, there's obviously an opportunity outside of the room to have a big argument. I think that, on that note, given that this has taken a while, and actually, I'm going to indulge myself. I had a question on this paper which hasn't been picked up, and I'm going to ask it. What about the bridges? Where do they come in terms of our asset management? I just want to know if they should be in or should be out.
They don't form part of this property asset management strategy, which focuses generally on our council buildings. That will fall under the responsibility for ECS and the Highways Department, and I'm not cited on any other work they're progressing in relation to
Okay,
the
because I was
bridges.
just thinking, and Councillor Hedges will remember things that have come up about. Obviously, bridges are very, very, very big things. Right, Councillor Corner, I'm going to let you have one but if you mention that other paper, that's it, and then we will go for a vote. How do we get through without mentioning that?
It is actually on a separate point, and this committee, at its last meeting, considered the acquisition of an asset. It was a house, and members will remember discussing that. One of the concerns raised by members of the committee at that meeting was that there was not a proper options kind of paper set out with the different options of what could be done with that property and why the decision had been taken to acquire it. As part of this an asset strategy, management strategy, also needs to consider how those assets are governed. in my view. So can officers and the Cabinet members please confirm that when we are taking decisions on whether to acquire or modify or dispose of an asset, that this committee will see an options analysis that has been completed on those assets, so that we can scrutinise why the decisions and the recommendations made on the management of assets have been taken?
Isn't that a housing property?
Excuse me. Councillor Ambash, wait. Shh. I'm just going to come in here. We keep saying, and I know sometimes things have to be, everything that we look at, I think Mr. Sharp, if you could correct me if I've got this wrong, is that all the properties and everything we do with them will be subject to work through the relevant service stream. And did you say you'll be looking at business cases? I'm sure you said that. My clerk will probably remember if that was said. Is that the case?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay.
That is correct.
Thank you. And if the Cabinet members have anything else to add on that?
Where appropriate.
Right, thank you very much. Okay, I would like to move to a vote.
That's fine, but I want to come back to the technical point. A says, approve the contents of this report and the asset management strategy. If the report is the asset management strategy, how does that make even grammatical sense?
Well, thank you for your comment. Obviously,
not just a comment, because there's a document that has Wandsworth Council's logo on it that says it's the asset management strategy and wants to sell off children's centres. So if that's the asset management strategy, that's what we're voting for.
Right, we've just gone through all that, okay? Councillor Graham...
How does A make sense? It doesn't make sense. If the report is the asset management strategy, what is AND doing in the middle of it?
Yeah. Sorry, right.
I know what you're voting on, Councillor Belton, because I'm not sure what you're voting on.
Okay,
but if you're clear that you're voting on selling off children's centres, please go ahead.
We're not. So we are very clear we're not. Right,
this committee has been kept in the dark on the full document.
Councillors! Thank you. I do not expect to have to raise my voice because you all start arguing amongst yourselves, right? So please desist. Okay, we will now move to a vote on the recommendations. Your choice about what you would like to do. Okay, so we've been asked to go for recommendation A, to approve this paper, the asset management strategy, and B, to note the contents. Okay, do we need to take them in as a... No, we're going to vote against them all. Right, okay. All those in favour of the recommendations, please raise their hands. It's high so we can count them. 6. All those against this, raise their hands. 4. Thank you, and please note the Chair did not cast a vote. Thank you, councillors. Okay, thank you, Mr Sharp. Thank you, Mr Ogby.